Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. All right, today we are joined by Stephanie Gilezan, who's the CEO of Gilezan Global, a company that does a little bit of everything. Kind of fascinated about this. Looking forward to hearing a little more of her story. Stephanie, why don't you just first introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit of the things you do there.
Everybody always says, tell us a little bit of the things you do. And I'm like, gosh, that's a little bit difficult because there's a lot of what I do. So
It is.
technically,
I think we started when I met you, I first thought, oh, she's a commercial real estate broker. Okay, that's interesting. And then it's like, oh no, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I did start out in 1999, right out of college, as a real estate broker and have been in the Louisville, Kentucky market and surrounding counties for all this time, but also have expanded into commercial real estate across the United States and multiple countries. But also we do M&A, mergers and acquisition transactions. So representing businesses, the sale of businesses all over. And so even though we reside and operate and live right here in Louisville, Kentucky, our business is literally currently in 43 different states and 9 countries. So it's pretty cool to be able to do business sitting here on Zoom and people say, where are you located? And I say, Louisville, Kentucky. And they kind of look at me sideways like, what?
Yeah. And we're about 10 miles apart
Yeah.
geographically, and I honestly I'd never heard of you. I mean, I'd heard of EXP Realty, but I
Yeah.
had not have heard of your company. It blew my mind when I looked at the depth and size of the types of deals you've got going. Tell a couple of the big projects you got going on right now.
Well, some of the things that we represent, we do a lot of these exits for large franchisee owners. And so when somebody owns a large portfolio of, let's say, Burger Kings, we'll list all of those and we'll get them sold, whether they include the real estate or not. But a lot of times they'll include that, or these medical facilities. And so, our deal size can range from 500,000 all the way up to well over $100 million. And so when you're looking at the local market, you might see us on some hotels, you might see us on some office buildings, you might see me in my developments because I'm also a developer and a luxury home builder. But when you leave outside of this market, you're seeing us on large transactions that span, again, across 43 different states.
Yeah. And now if they caught that, you're also a luxury home builder and developer.
Yeah, yeah.
We ought to like have
Check, check.
a little counter in the corner, like
I
every time
know.
another business unit comes up, add it to
Yeah.
the ticker. So how did this growth happen? I understand realtor, commercial real estate, developer. I mean, those all make sense. How did the crossover into business brokerage take place?
Well, I tell you, for the longest time, I think all of us are taught to remain extremely local, right? We're taught to own your market, learn your market, and know your market. At least that's what I was taught going through real estate school. That was what I was taught going through every real estate coaching class, every training class, you name it, that's what I was taught. And I built real estate brokerages prior to bringing my brokerage onto EXP. EXP is a national, actually a global brokerage. And what that helped me do was take everything I knew how to do well and put it on a global stage.
Wow.
Because what's so easy, now you can't do this residential. Residential is hyper local. You got to understand subdivisions, you got to understand the zip codes, you got to be a member of that multiple listing service. But when you're talking commercial real estate and business sales, if you understand how to do those transactions, you can do those anywhere because what we're selling is bottom line. And so
Right.
my husband and I partnered. I got him into the business back in the early 2000s. He was in the restaurant industry for quite some time.
Okay.
Superstar when it came to opening up Hard Rock cafes and Planet Hollywood all over the US. That's what he did and
Wow.
understood that. And so that's why we do a lot of restaurants because he's got that background. But understanding and he getting his certified business intermediary and understanding that right now, with the baby boomers retiring, we're going through the largest transition
Yeah.
of wealth that we're ever going to see. In the
Yeah.
course of the next 5 years, there's going to be over $5 trillion worth of businesses that are going to
Wow.
be bought and sold. Why wouldn't I want to be part of that?
Yeah.
Even if we got a smidge of business off of that, why wouldn't we want to do that?
Yeah.
And as we were investigating it further, we noticed that when you look at the United States and you look at the level of how many people have truly obtained their certified business intermediary designation, there's less than 600 people that have that. And my husband happens to be one of those. And so
Okay.
as I've gotten real estate, specialties and designations and developer and builder, he's done that with the business side of things, which is what makes us a very unique team, more than just a husband and wife.
Yeah. Cool. So you started this. Did I hear you say right out of college you went
Right out of
straight
college,
into
1999 is when I graduated college and went
uh,
right into real estate.
and pretty much went on your, when did you become like you alone?
So in Kentucky, in the state of Kentucky, you have to practice real estate your first 2 years under a broker of record,
Right.
okay? And so I tried like crazy to get in with commercial brokers. And to be quite honest with you, John, they looked at me, a 21-year-old girl, and said, uh-uh,
Yeah.
uh-uh. So I
Right.
had a lot of doors slammed in my face, which is still the fire that resides in this belly today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I ended up going to a small independent brokerage because in high school, his daughters were my age. We actually played field hockey together and we went to Eastern High School together. And
Okay.
I remembered him being in real estate and he sold houses. So I picked up the phone and I called him and I said, I played field hockey with you. Oh, I remember you. And I said, look, I've got my real estate license, but this is what I want to do. He said, I can't really help you, but I'll let you come. And so I went, and that's where I hung my license for the first 7 months of my career.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening there is one, I pounded the pavement because back in 1999, the internet wasn't really,
Right.
I mean, it was barely a thing.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
People didn't have websites.
Yeah. It's still old school. Yeah.
I mean, it was old school. We were driving around, we were handwriting everything. And so
Those
I was
those
out pounding.
MLS listing books.
Yeah, I was out pounding the pavement. And look, it was either make it or not. Make it or not. And I happened to be, here's a very important piece. I was a single mom. I had my son April 3rd of 1999, and I went into real estate June of 1999. So I had two choices, eat or not eat. Okay.
Yeah.
So I pounded the pavement and I made some things work. I always say I was at the right place at the right time. I did not know what I was doing, but I knew that I could work, I could answer my phone, and I was not going to let these people down. And the first few clients I landed, they knew by looking at me. They were like, okay,
Yeah.
she's young, so obviously she's new to this.
Yeah.
But what they loved is that one, I didn't act all conceited. They loved the fact that I was available.
Yeah.
After so long, people in the business, they get to the point, oh, I'm not answering my phone, or they want to
Yeah.
set their own hours. Well, I was willing to work anytime, all the time. Courier Journal even did an article on me and who was next to me, my son, because he was
Yeah.
with me everywhere I went. And so we became known for that. And so that's what ended up happening. And my broker, who was that small independent broker, he said, you need to slow down. He said, you're thinking too big. You need to stop dreaming and just pull back a little bit. And I said, no, I don't. Because that's when things that's when people do what you do, because he
Yeah.
was in his 60s
Yeah.
and working like a dog. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in my 60s working like a dog. So that's when I met a phenomenal agent in his office, and I found out she had her broker's license. And I asked her, I said, Barbara, what, you have your broker's license? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, why are you here? And she goes, well, it's just kind of a hobby. I said, if I give you 10% of every deal I do, will you be my broker, but let me do what I want to do? Let me dream as big as I can dream. Let me just run with everything. I'll never get you sued. We won't go to jail, but I promise you'll make more money than you've ever made in your life. And she said, okay. And she made more money than she ever made in her life off my 10%. And then
Wow.
when I was able to sit for my broker's exam, I sat for it, I passed it, and then she went on her way.
Yeah.
And that
You
was
got you have drive, tenacity, all those words, and that's what I picked that up the
grit,
first time we
grit,
talked.
it's grit.
Grit. It's all that wrapped up in one package. I mean, it's so cool. Where does that come from? I mean, you mentioned you had like a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, there at the beginning, but where that? I mean, you obviously came out of college and ball of fire. So
I think a lot of what happens in your parents always have a plan, right?
yeah,
My parents didn't go to college. They were self-made. They did very, very well, but they didn't come from anything. I mean, they literally didn't. And trust me, I was not raised wealthy. We were middle class. We didn't starve. We lived well. But they started from nothing, but no college degrees and none of that. I was the first person in my family to go to college.
yeah,
And honestly, John, it was kind of like, why are you going to college? You don't need to go to college to be successful in this world. And I was like, well, because the people at school are telling me I kind of have to go to college, or in society, I'm going to be looked at as a loser,
yeah,
right? So then they're all convinced, okay, well, if you're going to go to college, then you need to come out of college and you need to be an attorney. So then it was that. So
yeah,
I didn't do that. So it was
right,
kind of like I had to be successful in order to prove that every decision I made was worth it. Like,
yeah,
I didn't want that I told you so ever.
yeah. You're what, if you listen to podcast, Ed Milet talks about every family has the one. It's that
Yeah.
one person that changes the trajectory of the family. You're the
Yes.
one in your
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
That's it's cool to realize.
It's fun. It is fun. And and I told my dad early on, when he was so upset with me because I didn't go to law school. I said, Dad, I said, here's the deal. He owned a construction company, puts in infrastructure. And I said, one day you're going to work for me. Before I'm 40, it's my goal that you're going to work for me. Well, the first development I ever did was out in Prospect. And of course, I bought the land. I gotta hire the company to do the infrastructure. So I pick up the phone. I said, Dad, I bought this land. I'm at Sayback Wilson and Lingo. They're putting the engineering together.
Huh.
You want to bid on it? I made him bid on it. I didn't just hire him. I made him
Oh,
bid. But you know what?
uh,
I hired him before I was 40.
that's funny.
It was
Scott
great.
Scott Lingo over there is a really good friend of mine. I'm still friends with Scott.
I
Small
love
world.
Pat Dominic, but he's retired. So,
Yeah, they've
but
that all those guys have retired from that.
all of
That
them,
was a
yeah.
great agency. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so cool. Well, so much we can talk about. Let's go into the kind of the business brokerage part. You mentioned franchises and such, but what's kind of the most interesting story you've? I find business brokers always have just some fascinating, interesting stories. I've been involved with a handful of exits as a coach, um, and they're all interesting. One of the things I always notice is that every owner thinks their business is worth more than it is, and every buyer thinks it's worth less. It's
That's right. That's
and,
right.
and contrary to housing where you've got pretty set standards, you can kind of figure that out. In business, there's a formula, but there's also a lot of opinions that go around that. So Anyway, I rattled on too long, but tell me.
No, you're right though, that, a lot of what we run into, and it's a coaching session. We can't just list everything that we run into right then and there. There's a process it's got to go through, because majority of business owners don't realize that the business they built, no matter how successful it is, doesn't operate without them in it.
Yeah.
And most buyers today don't want to buy a job, right?
Right.
They want to buy something that's going to get them a return on their investment. They want to earn, they want to see their money grow. They don't want to buy a job where they're going to have to go to work. So they want a company that's operating without them in it. And so that's the hardest part, is when you go in and you have to tell somebody that their baby is kind of ugly. So in a matter of words, right?
Well, that
Oh
is,
my God, is that your book?
that's my book.
Oh my God, I had no idea. I had no idea. So I love that. That's awesome. But that's the truth, because your business is your baby. I mean,
Yeah.
it's emotional. It is. It's emotional. When people say, "Oh, I'm in commercial real estate because I don't want to deal with the drama of residential." True. Business though, especially when you're dealing with, Main Street businesses,
Yeah.
especially, is very personal, because it is
Yeah.
the baby. And there's a lot of ugly babies out there, but those babies can be cute. We can
Right.
put beautiful clothes on those babies and get them sold.
Yeah.
And, so it's getting through those processes. So we disappoint some people
Yeah.
a lot. Ultimately, they come around, but we're the type of people that we're truth tellers. We're not fluffers. We are
Right.
not, we're business brokers that we get paid when the deal sells. We don't
Right.
take a dollar ahead of time. Now, there's business brokers out there that say, give me $50,000 and then I'll list it. Well, they don't care if they ever sell it or not, because they made
Right.
the money.
Yeah.
That's not who we are. So
Right.
we want to list businesses that are sellable. And
Yeah.
sometimes it takes, working with you, John, working with several different entities and people to get that business structured in a way that it can be sold.
Yeah.
And, for the most part, I can't say this company's name, but what I can say is that almost all the homes in our area, and probably 7, 8, 9 surrounding states, almost all of us have this name stamped on something in our house. So
Okay.
we know they've been around for a long time. We assume they are an extremely successful company. Well, when we were called to go and talk to them about selling their company, upside down beyond belief.
Yeah.
Upside down beyond belief. John, they were they were doing all kinds of sales. Like I said, they're in everybody's home.
Yeah.
But they had nothing. There was no accounting mechanism that was showing them if they were making a profit. They Anybody that worked there loved working there, because they were
Yeah.
overpaying people left and
Right.
right. I mean, there was so much that was going on there. This business still isn't sold. And it won't be. It'll take 5, 6 years to fix everything, because as well as I do, a buyer wants to see the last 3 years
Yeah.
something successful. They don't want to see the
Yeah.
last 3 months. They want to see the
Yeah.
last 3 years of
It's like
something
18
successful.
months minimum,
Yeah,
3 years preferably,
yeah.
Yeah.
So as
Uh,
much as that company is super, super popular, and we all have them, it's got some issues.
yeah. I had one, and I write about this one in my book, but they had, their business model just didn't work. They were losing money with every new client they got. And so it's like, proverbial hamster wheel. You're going
Yeah,
nowhere.
yeah.
Hey, let's add 10 more customers. Oh, so you can lose 10 times more money. You know?
Exactly. I mean,
Uh,
when a business is a hobby, it's not a business, right?
right.
And there's a lot of people too, that they put a value on things that other people just simply don't care about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing, and we see it so many times. We had one that we did a valuation on, and it was right around $1 million, and the guy was, it's worth 3 million, and we're like, and we explained to it, went through the numbers, went through the however it all came up, and he just absolutely refused. And it's now 3 years later, and I think he still owns the business. I don't think he ever got or would never get what he wanted. I mean, he wanted the broker just to list it, and broker like you would say, like, it's not worth my time. It's not going to sell. If it's not going to sell, I'm not going to waste my time doing it.
That's
So
right.
that's fascinating. So um, have you had any? I've had a couple of those really good turnaround stories where, yeah, we put a pause on selling, and we addressed some things and then got it to where you wanted. Have you seen that happen?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would think probably if I were to put a statistic on it, probably over 70% of our listings were in that predicament at some point in time, which is why it's so important for us not to just race to bring something to market. We would rather see it go through that process so
Yeah,
that we bring a sellable business and that package is perfect. I mean, we want that package so perfect that any lender in the country wants to love
yeah,
on, right?
right,
That's what's important because look, if a bank's not going to finance it, no buyer's going to buy it. You just have
right.
to assume that, okay?
Yeah,
Even if somebody's willing to pay cash, you still have got to get it financing ready. That's what we do.
absolutely.
And we make sure that multiple lenders are going to underwrite it before we ever take it to market. And that
Oh wow,
also tells
that's a
us
part of your process.
that's part of our process
Yeah,
because why not? If three banks say no, well, how the hell are we going to sell it? Right.
yeah,
And so, we've had those scenarios. And here's the other reason why we like doing that. We're not the only bad guy at that point.
yeah.
Right? A financial institution, multiple financial institutions are saying the same thing. And then
Right.
we tend to say, okay, it's not just these individuals with a little bit of country twang in their voice. It's a bank that has been around, worth billions and billions of dollars saying this. Okay, let's listen to them and do exactly what it is that they're recommending to do. And so that's how we're able to get them through that
Yeah,
process. And if that takes a year, it takes a year. If it takes two, it takes two. If it takes 3 months, okay.
yeah. I, I've I've found that those teams. I mean, to be successful, you got to have their banker, you got to have their lawyer, you got to have their accountant, you got to have their
Yeah.
financial planner, you got to have the broker. You got to have this team of people around them because they're looking with these rose-colored glasses, going. All they're thinking is about the payday. And they need that trusted set of advisors around them going, no, we have to do A, B, C, D, and E first before
You
we.
need to plan for when it sells way before you ever plan on selling it
Yeah,
because of the tax implication. What are
yeah,
you going to do with the money? I mean, there's just so much that goes into this. And John, I don't know about you, but I have met some of the wealthiest people in the United States of America who have never planned for anything. I'm serious.
yeah,
They don't have trust. They don't know what a DST is. They don't have a clue how to save on taxes. They have no structured plan. They have no financial advisor. And they might have a business that we're going to sell for $56 million, but they have none of the above.
yeah.
And there's a lot of people like that. And so we become more
Uh,
than just
Why,
that
why is
business
that is that
broker.
just why is that the case? Is that just because maybe they were successful early and they just like they were dumb luck and they just never. I
I
just can't figure that one out.
I don't know. I think people don't realize maybe it just gets away from them, or maybe they don't feel like maybe they're. Here's what I think it is. I think people are so worried that that stuff costs so much money that they don't even want to look into it.
Yeah,
That's what it is. Oh,
that
I
was the
don't
guy
want
I
to talk
used
to
to work
those people.
for.
He's going to take 8% of my money. No, guys, that's what it is. Because
Yeah,
a lot of times we'll recommend, there's some great people across all over that, are good at the financial planning or the advising or whatever the case, the
mhm,
tax law,
yeah,
you name it. And we get nothing. We just know good people to take care of our good people and we want them to be prepared, because the last thing I want to do is go out, get the perfect buyer, get them the right amount of money, and then them a handful of days before it's going to transact, and they realize what they're going to owe in taxes and go, oh, I'm not selling, right? We don't want to
Yeah.
get that far and the deal stops. So
Right.
we need to know all this ahead of time. We had a phenomenal lady in Chicago. She built one hell of a business. She went from little to nothing to an empire.
Mhm.
And it was worth about 12 million. It is worth about 12 million. We get on a call and her CPA says to her, you don't want to sell this because you're going to pay 39% of it in taxes. And she doesn't list it. She's still working it. I'm like, what are
Mm.
you going to do? Work it all your life just because you got to
Yeah.
pay taxes? Let's get with some tax professionals, not
Yeah.
your CPA, who obviously just wants to tell you doom and gloom.
Right.
Let's get with strategic people that can help you get some of those write-offs or write-downs or put
Yeah.
it in some trust. Yes,
Yeah.
you're going to pay taxes. We all do.
Mm. Yeah.
But there are ways to get around to not have to pay all 39%.
Right. Right. Yeah. And yeah, tax strategy is a huge part of it. So, so without divulging anything confidential, of course, what's on the horizon for you? What are some things you're excited about?
You
Uh,
know, something that I'm extremely excited about, and this goes even further. A few years ago, I got involved with. I've had a lot of clients here in the States that they've been investing in all kinds of income producing real estate, and then they've expanded into other markets, whether it's the Bahamas, U.S. Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, Costa Rica, some really cool places. And we've had the benefit of selling in some of those places, Dominican Republic. And so selling global real estate, whether it's for short-term rental purposes, whether it's for hotel, resort, whether it's that second home that you need to get for yourself because you've made a good amount of money. And if you buy that second home, not only can you go there and visit and have fun with it, but you can get some good tax write-offs owning that home too, right? There's
yeah.
incentives. But learning and knowing that market, I saw a void in outside of the US. And what the void is that it's so easy here in the States to find deals. It's easy to find real estate opportunities because we have so many great advertising platforms. But when you leave the US, you got to look in 9, 10, 12 different places. It is
Oh,
a
okay.
pain in the royal, you know what? It's a
Yeah.
time crunch. And a
Yeah.
lot of these places, they don't have one uniform location to put anything, they're nothing. And
Mhm.
so what I've been working on for the last year, one of my partners is with Microsoft. Another partner is with a marketing company called Lux VT. And myself, I'm the real estate arm of it that understands the real estate side. We are building a global destination platform to market these phenomenal developments
Mm.
that exist in all these different places so that you, clients, whoever can go to this place and be able to shop for property that's been vetted, so that we don't get conned, so that we know it exists, so that we understand how we purchase property in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because every little place has different sets of
Oh,
rules,
yeah.
different golden visas, different tax incentives, different all kinds of things. And so
Right.
what Air Domo is going to be is all of that information rolled into one, and it's going to launch in 2 weeks. So
Oh,
one
wow.
one more roll on this one.
You heard, if we had that counter, we would just add it one more.
Yeah, you just would keep up in it. Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah, yeah,
that's cool. I love hearing ideas like that. And
yeah.
2 weeks, you're gonna have a big.
Yeah, and I plan on, this being something that will grow into, I hate to say this, not the next Zillow, so to speak, because Zillow's its own thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to destination and things outside of the US, think of it in that's my dream for it, is to get that big. because we will take it public.
Yeah. I was actually just talking to a client this morning about a dream he has of buying some property in Costa Rica.
See, there's a
That's
lot of people.
part business, part, probably Airbnb or whatever, part investment.
Look, there's a lot of money to be made in the vacation industry. And what I love about it is that one, there's no capital gains tax in these places, right?
Okay.
And so when people are looking to, I can take $1 million, buy a piece of property or 2 or 3 in Dominican Republic, rent them out, never pay capital gains tax on any of that income. I could buy property, fix it up and flip it, never pay capital gains tax. We do that here. We're paying a lot. I mean, I build homes. I know what those taxes are. It's a lot. So there's just opportunities. And then to do it in such a really cool place. Hey, it's great to look at and put your feet in the sand and have fun while
you have to go sampling, right?
I mean, why not? Look, the way we do business these days, so much of it on the computer, so much able to be remote work. I mean, most of my clients I'm meeting on Zoom as it is. I can do that from anywhere these days. So might as well have a few homes elsewhere.
Cool.
That's the goal anyway. I don't yet, but that's the goal.
Well, Stephanie, it's been great hearing your story and getting to know you. You're definitely an inspirational person.
Thank you.
For that young person in your shoes back in 1999, that young lady or young man, what advice? Because the world has changed a little bit since 1999. I think that was pre 9/11, pre Y2K, pre so many things, pre-COVID. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give those folks?
The same advice I gave myself back then. When somebody tells you no, go harder.
Yeah.
Just go harder. I mean, everything can be done. It's just work. And that's the thing. I've never been the smartest person. I've never been the best real estate agent. I've never been the best broker, but I work hard. And I respect people and I show up. And that's what we do. We show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's all about. People reach out to me all the time and they say, I want to be like you. And I say, all you got to do is the work. You just got to do the work. Nothing, nothing comes for free. Nothing lands in our lap. And if it did land in our lap and I did nothing but look at it, nothing's going to come of it. You got to just do the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't care what degree I had or whatever, it's doing the work is.
What degree did you have?
You won't believe it. Political science.
Yeah.
My dad says I got a BS.
My dad's degree was in political science too. So.
My dad says I got a BS degree.
Yeah. In the literal sense, right?
In the literal sense.
It's just been a pleasure. I hope we get to have many more conversations down the road. But
anytime, John. Anytime.
We'll call this one to an end. Thank you for coming on the podcast, and thank you for inspiring. Hopefully, lots of people to take those leaps and to have a little grit.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.